Hi, all Agatha Christie fans out there from all across the globe. My name is Vikas Singh and I'm a huge fan of her writings from India. Today I am very excited to share with you my journey with her writings. Crime and mystery genre, the thriller genres, have not got the same amount of respect and attention as some other genres of literature have. I have fundamentally believed that there is so much to learn, there is so much of knowledge, so much of life values in the mystery and the crime genre novels. And shortly, I am going to dwell upon that. Now, I was born in the steel township of Roorkela. It's a small township in India, small by Indian standards, with a population of just 0.5 million. The town had 2 public libraries. Since class 2, I have been reading crime and mystery novels. And some of my favorite authors at that point in time were Arthur Conan Doyle, Sidney Sheldon, Robert Ludlum, Nick Carter, James Hadley Chase, Earl Stanley Gardner, and so on and so forth. Now, when I was in class 8, the year was 1986, the librarian recommended a Agatha Christie novel to me. The novel was And Then There Were None. Since that year, around 35 years ago, I have been hooked onto her writings. Since then, I have read her entire works, including 69 novels, 165 short stories, 2 books on poetry, her autobiography, and a memoir on her travels. And I have read and read again most of her work. Each time I have read her, I have found something new, something interesting. In my journey with Christie, I learned life values and lessons in teamwork and leadership, how to be innovative and creative, new facts on culture, tradition, and literature. Christie started writing her first novel, The Mysterious Affair at Style, while she was volunteering in the Torquay Hospital Dispensary during World War I. It was rejected by 6 publishers before being finally accepted by the Bodley Head in 1920, a full 4 years after its completion. Christie had to put up with a lot of criticism. Frances Wyndham declared her writing to be animated algebra. Edmund Wilson challenged her with questioning, who cares who killed Roger Ackroyd? Bernard Levin found not one of her books worth the time of an intelligent adult. Julian Simmons pronounced her books to be mere riddles. Undeterred, she continued to write, and her persistence paid. Today, her books are outsold only by Bible and Shakespeare. Being a detective, Poirot's impeccable eye for detail comes to him naturally. He solves his cases not with obvious clues, but by paying attention to small, insignificant clues and piecing them together. He says in Murder on the Orient Express, I can only see a world as it should be. It makes an imperfection stick out like the nose on your face. What makes Poirot a great detective is his sharp mind and his brilliance to look beyond the obvious by thinking out of the box. He not only has a knack of applying his critical thinking skills and formulating a solution, he is also able to detect false evidence that appears real. When solving the case, he does not look at it from one perspective only, but many. So much so that everyone is seen as a suspect. And he says in Murder on the Orient Express, if it was easy, I would not be famous. Both the armchair detective Miss Marple and Poirot succeed because they are patient, they have a sharp observation, and they have inductive reasoning. Poirot says in the book, The ABC Murders, patience, everything arranges itself given time. Attitude is everything. Nothing sums it up better than Poirot's claim in The Mystery of the Blue Train. My name is Hercule Poirot,
and I am probably the greatest detective in the world. Poirot may display a funny but deep sense of self-belief and confidence, but it is this deep sense of self-belief and confidence that helps him in solving the most complex of cases. Standing at a diminutive 5 feet 4 inches with an egg-shaped head, often tilted to one side, and eyes that shine green when he is excited, Poirot often appears comical to others, but he has an attitude that gives him confidence and challenges him again and again to use his little grey cells. Poirot often has a last laugh, finishing his cases with a dramatic climax, satisfying his own ego and confirming to all that he is truly the greatest. Both Miss Marple and Poirot are able to solve cases because of their power of observation. Many a times, even when the inspector at the Scotland Yard and the police get careless, this power of observation makes the two of them solve the case. Poirot further elaborates on being observant, being methodical when he says in The Murder on the Links, "Method you comprehend. Method, arrange your facts, arrange your ideas, and if some little fact will not fit in, do not reject it, but consider it closely. Though its significance escapes you, be sure that it is significant." Both Poirot and Miss Marple are able to solve the strangest of cases because they carefully observe everything around them. For Poirot, perfection is order and method. At times bordering on compulsive disorder, this determination helps Poirot solve the cases. He revels in Peril at End House, order and method. That is the first stage, to arrange the facts with neatness and precision. The next stage is that of psychology, the correct employment of the little grey cells. It pays to be original. Agatha Christie's success as a crime writer can be attributed to originality in the characters she created, whether it was a retired Belgian detective in Hercule Poirot, or a spinster, a tweed sporting old lady amateur detective in Miss Jane Marple, or the young and energetic detective couple in Tommy and Tuppence. So, I learned valuable lessons in life values from her writings. But it is not over yet. Agatha Christie's writings are great examples in innovation. And these innovations are the stuff they should actually use to prepare case studies for teaching students at the business schools. Christie wrote short story Manx Gold to promote tourism to the island of Man. The story was published in installment, giving clues for a real treasure hunt on the island. The Manx Gold was one of the most unusual commissions undertaken by Christie in her career. The idea of a treasure hunting story was promoted by a wish on the part of Manx politicians to promote tourism to the island of Man. Christie wrote a short story which was serialized in the Daily Dispatch in 5 installments on 23rd, 24th, 26th, 27th and 28th of May 1930. The story gave the clues to the location of 4 snuff boxes hidden on the island, each of which contained a voucher for £100, a considerable sum in 1930. Island residents were barred from taking part. To further promote the hunt, the story was then published in a promotional booklet entitled June in Douglas, which was distributed at guest houses and other tourist spots. I am yet to come across a more innovative idea to promote tourism than this. Christie wrote the short story Greenshore Folly to raise funds for new stained glass window at the Church of St. Mary the Virgin in the village of Churston Ferrers. The story featured Hercule Poirot and was called the Greenshore Folly. This novella-length story, however, proved difficult to sell because it was too short for a novel and too long for serialization in a magazine. Christie therefore withdrew the story and wrote another one with a similar title, Greenshore's Folly, for the church fund instead. It featured a Miss Marple story instead of Poirot. The east-facing window of the church was designed by Bedford artist James Patterson, depicting Jesus as the Good Shepherd in Agatha Christie's favorite colors of greens and mauves. The Green Shore Folly novella was ultimately never published in its original form. Instead, it became basis for one of our favorite novels, Dead Man's Folly. 60 years after it was written, this previously unpublished version of the story was published finally as Hercule Poirot and the Green Shore Folly. The book was introduced by Tom Adams, who also painted a striking new jacket for the book. It includes a preface by Agatha Christie's grandson Matthew Pritchard and an afterword by the renowned Christie expert Dr. John Curran. As member of Detection Club, Christie collaborated with 13 other writers to write mystery novel The Floating Admiral. Each author wrote one chapter of the novel, and later each one of them wrote their own ending for the mystery. I am yet to come across an innovation of this sort by any other writer in the history of literature. First published in 1936, Six Against the Yard was an ingenious and perhaps unique variation on the conventional detective fiction anthology. The book contains 6 stories by members of the Detection Club featuring potentially foolproof murders, but each is followed by an analysis undertaken by former Superintendent Cornish of Scotland Yard, in which the flaws in the criminal scene are exposed. The book also contains a short essay by Agatha Christie, which was originally published in 1929 about a real-life arsenic poisoning case which was never solved. But this is not all. I have learned several new facts from reading the works of Agatha Christie, all of which have added to my knowledge. Poison has a certain appeal, wrote Agatha Christie in They Do It With Mirrors. It is not the crudeness of the revolver bullet or the blunt instrument. In the world of crime and detective fiction, there is no author that has extensively used poisons so effectively and accurately than Christie. During World War I, Christie spent most of her time serving as a nurse in a local dispensary. This was later attributed as the reason why she developed such a keen interest in poisons. She writes in her autobiography, "Since I was surrounded by poisons, perhaps it was natural that death by poisoning should be the method I selected." Reading Christie, one gets to know how common trees and plants can be source of deadly poison, how a slight overdose of an otherwise harmless medicine can kill, and how deadly poison can be extracted from some common drugs. Reading Christie's work, I learnt a lot about English pottery and teacups. Brown's Hotel is a historic 5-star hotel in Mayfair that dates from 1837. Queen Victoria herself took tea here. It also inspired Agatha Christie's novel At Bertram's Hotel. This English tea room offers a traditional afternoon tea. And I realized that the custom of taking afternoon tea became popular among Britain's wealthier classes in the 1840s. And to this day, it is enjoyed by many, despite lunch being de rigueur for most. A proper English afternoon tea is comprised of an immaculately laid table, fine china teaware, tiny gourmet finger sandwiches, freshly baked sweets and pastries, and fresh warm scones with jam and clotted cream. Tea is freshly brewed to perfection. I come from India, a traditionally tea drinking nation, but it is from Agatha Christie's writings that I have come to know so much about the traditional afternoon English tea. At Bertram's Hotel is also a delightful insight into the subtle differences between an American and a British citizen. Coming from India, movies like Jane Eyre, Mansfield Park, Pride and Prejudice, Atonement, Remains of the Day are a window to life in a British manner. However, for me, a much better and detailed portrayal of life of that time period can be found in Agatha Christie's writings. Partners in Crime, a Tommy and Tuppence novel, is a great resource to know about famous detective writers and their detectives. Many of them are now forgotten, with the books having gone out of print. In The Adventure of the Sinister Stranger, Tommy and Tuppence adopt the style and methods of Francis and Desmond, the Oakwood brothers, created by Valentine Williams. In Blind Man's Bluff, Tommy is imitating Thorney Colton, the blind problemist, the sightless detective, created by Clinton Holland Stagg. In The Man in the Mist, Tommy imitates Father Brown, the Catholic priest detective, created by G.K. Chesterton. In The Sunningdale Mystery, Tommy imitates the Old Man in the Corner, the greatest of the armchair detectives, a character created by Baroness Emma Orczy. In The Unbreakable Alibi, the case is solved by Tommy and Tuppence in the manner of Inspector Joseph French, the easygoing, happily married Scotland Yard detective, created by Freeman Wills Crofts. Finally, having read her entire body of work, I could combine the knowledge and information gained from Agatha Christie's writings with my own interests of philately, Bollywood, food, imperfect world, poisons and murders.
In 2018, I curated the Agatha Christie Crime Festival in the Indian town of Bhopal. The entire festival was planned and executed as a tribute by a fan to his favorite author. We had 8 sessions over a period of 2 months and a film festival, all dedicated to the life and works of Agatha Christie. Entry to the sessions was free, and since there was no sponsorship, I ended up paying a tidy sum of amount to pull the festival through. But in the end, it was all well worth it. Let me quickly take you through the key highlights of this 2-month festival, which was such an important milestone in my journey with Agatha Christie.
The first session, titled The Poisonous World of Agatha Christie, centered around her medicinal background and her choice of poisons as a weapon of murder. At the end of the session, guests were served cocoa drink with 2 spoonfuls of rum inspired from her very first novel. The second session was titled A Philatelic Tribute to Agatha Christie. In this session, I shared my philatelic collection on her works and life. We discussed in detail these philatelic items and their relevance with respect to her works. At the end of the session, guests were served Sirop de Cassis, Poirot's favorite drink. In the third session, The Essential Hercule Poirot, we discussed his fictional biography and nuances. This session also included a quiz on this Belgian detective, and the winners received Agatha Christie novels. At the end of the session, guests were served chamomile tea, Hercule Poirot's favorite tisane. The fourth session was titled The Indian Connection. It focused on all mentions of India in her works. We also discussed and talked about Indian films that have been inspired from her works. Titled The Essential Agatha Christie, it discussed little known facts about Christie. To challenge the little grey cells of her fans, we also had a quiz on her life and works. The winners received her novels as prizes. This was a very special session, and of all the sessions, I had most fun curating this one. Titled Food and Crime, we discussed the major food themes in her works. In this entry by invite event, a special breakfast menu was spread for invited guests. Every single item on the menu was inspired from her writings. We also had an exhibition of all her works from my personal collection. If you notice, the clips have Tintin because both Poirot and Tintin are Belgian. I also have a huge soft corner for comics. The seventh session was titled Trains and Murders. It was organized at the railway themed restaurant in Bhopal. This restaurant is in a broad gauge railway coach, and the railway theme is complete with railway platform, waiters dressed as ticket checkers, train whistles and railway clocks. Students from a local school performed a key scene from the novel Murder on the Orient Express right on the railway platform. As part of the festival, 5 films inspired from her works were screened. At the beginning of each screening, there was a 15-minute critical appreciation of the novel as well as the film. The 8th and the concluding session was with entry by invite only. Guests were served orange and poppy seed cake inspired from at Bertram's Hotel. We also had fun preparing a special Indian masala blend of chai, complete with chili flakes, cinnamon and pepper to go with Agatha Christie's thrill of chase. As guests had tea in colorful glasses inspired from her Harlequin tea set, we discussed feedback on the festival.
This, in a nutshell, has been my journey with Agatha Christie so far. I hope you had fun on this journey with me. If you want to remain in touch, please join us on the Facebook page Fans of Agatha Christie. We started this page in 2018 and since then it has grown to 5,000 members from more than 42 countries. So join us. And in the end, I would only say, stay healthy, be calm, and keep reading Agatha Christie. Bye.